Scary True Stories. A Child's Dog Spirit. I was about 5 or 6 years old, and my dog had just died. My sister and I had shared a room back then, so I told her everything about my dreams. But what I saw that night wasn't a dream. It was late, and I wasn't feeling well. I was dreaming about my dog because I missed him very badly. Well, I got up, and when I looked forward, I saw something. It was a glowing thing, just floating in the middle of our room. I started to move forward, and I saw the angel of my dog. I started to talk to him, and he kinda sorta responded. I told him how much I missed him. Well, after he left, I went back to sleep. The next morning, I went to go see if he was still there, but he wasn't. I looked at the floor where he was floating, and there were paw prints. I couldn't believe it. I've never told anyone about this until now. This is a true story. I'm still shocked and amazed. I think he was there to comfort me and to show me that he was fine and happy. He didn't want me to worry. Amazing cat ghost story. Yanin's spirit messages. When I was 15, I had a friend named Jane. I used to stay over at her place. She had a huge black cat we called Yanin. He seemed to be able to answer questions with his tail. If it went to the right, it was yes, yay. If it went to the left, it was no, nine. So he was Yanin, as his tail was always going right to left. Yanin eventually died, and the night of his death he came to me and said telepathically, "I want to show you something and tell you something." I went with him in spirit, and we did a full round of the 3-story house in Woolwich, Sydney. We went to every room. Yanin told me where the family had things stashed in hidey holes around the place, which was funny. The next morning at breakfast, I was asked, "How did you sleep, DD?" I sort of chuckled and told them the whole story. I described how Tim, Jane's father, and his partner were sleeping, which was impossible for me to know, as they had a whole floor to themselves. There was a self-locking door to that level, and there was no way I could have gotten through without a key. I told everyone where they hid their treasures. Old sepia photos of pornographic nature, worth a fortune mind you, cash an event in the bathroom, diaries, jewelry, and all sorts of stuff. They were flabbergasted and asked me how I came to know all this, and I told them Yanin visited me and took me on a trip through the house, showing me everything. And he asked me to tell you that he will not be going anywhere. He is staying. There was a ghost in that house who was rather unpleasant, but really only played with people, slamming doors and locking them in rooms, stealing things like that. But he loathed and was very afraid of the cat, because Yanin could see him and was unafraid of him. So Yanin said he would stay and continue his patrols. It was his task to look after those who had looked after him so well and so lovingly. Jane looked at me and burst into tears, and she believed me completely. When she had hidden her cash and diary in a vent in her room, Yanin was the only one in the room. She remembered because she had fallen off the bed trying to reach the vent, and Yanin was sitting on the bed watching her. She said she could have sworn he was laughing at her. After that, every time I visited their home, Yanin took me on patrol with him. It always started at the back door, moving through all of the rooms, going up a level, till we got to the 3rd floor. You know I never, not once, saw the ghost who irritated the family. To this day, I remember so clearly, vividly, this regal, stunningly handsome, pure black cat, his perfectly green eyes, his large muscular frame, and that tail swishing right, left, back and forth, never stopping. And the little messages he would pass along for Jane or Giles, or Tim and Hank. Odd experiences. Trace's ghost story of her dog, Blade. Sadly, I had a Dobie who I had to euthanize due to heart failure. I absolutely idolized my dog, Blade. We were very close. I had always planned to cremate him and have his ashes in a nice wooden box in my cabinet when the time came which I was told would be about 6 months due to his severity. I had him with me for 9 months, which was a blessing. 3 weeks went by and no sign of his ashes. I thought they had lost him and resigned myself to the fact that I would not become upset as his spirit was released anyway. Now you might think this sounds silly, but before I made the decision to have Blade euthanized, I took him outside and was telling him, telepathically, and not sure if he could hear me, that I was making a decision because he had been through enough and didn't deserve to suffer anymore. I told him that I would have him cremated and his ashes would always be in the house. I also told him to come back and visit me and to let me know he was there. It is only supposed to take a week before you get their ashes back. One night, 3 weeks after Blade was euthanized, I was awoken out of a deep sleep in the early hours of the morning. I was not dreaming of him at all. I know this because I awoke straight away and would have known what I had just dreamt. I heard Blade bark right in my ear so loudly that it woke me instantly. I know his bark, and it was so loud. It wasn't an audible bark, but a telepathic bark. It was Blade's bark he used to do when he wanted something. It was to get my attention. I sat up in bed to listen for any sound, nothing. I woke my husband, asking if he had heard the dog bark in the bedroom, and he said, no, and made a stupid comment about poltergeists. I lay there for what seemed like ages thinking about Blade and was a little upset because it was so nice to hear his bark again. The next morning I got a phone call from the vet telling me to come pick his ashes up as they had finally arrived. Now I know this wasn't a coincidence. I truly believe that Blade came to tell me not to worry anymore, as his ashes were ready for me to pick up. He also let me know, just like I asked him to do. I had told him to do something, so I would know he was there with me. He certainly did. There is nothing like having a dog bark right in your ear. That is the last I have ever heard or felt of him. Blade is happy, and he deserves to be. I don't need to worry about him anymore. Not all visitors from the other side come to scare. Like this video if you believe. Subscribe for more true stories. And tell us your experience in the comments.